love scary movies, but I didn't always. In fact, today we're going to be talking about movies containing scary scenes that I just didn't need to see as a kid. Alright, so let's do it. Let's just get right into these.
All personnel, please evacuate to the nearest lab and report to your supervisor.
When you were a kid, did you ever stumble across something on the TV screen that you just weren't ready for? Like, for instance, a super scary scene in an R-rated horror film, something like that. Yeah? Congrats, me too, at least 50 or so times. But here's at least 10 of those experiences. So there's this little old movie called Child's Play 3. Yep, one of the Chucky movies. Part 3 was the first film in the franchise I can recall witnessing. I was probably in kindergarten and it scared the living crap out of me. I was at a cousin's house that day, supposed to be playing outside, but it was hot. So I snuck back inside, wandering into the TV room where one of my older cousins was watching Child's Play 3. It was the scene in which Chucky gets thrown out with the trash. As he's hauled up and into the back of a dumpster truck, Chucky cries for help, catching the attention of the driver, who freaks out, kills the machine, and scurries to the back of the truck. Chucky manages to climb his way out, but instead of just leaving, no, he turns the machine back on to punish the driver, who was literally doing nothing but his job. Anyway, the driver's arm gets crushed, he yells in agony, and that was the point at which my kindergarten eyes couldn't take it anymore, and I ran as fast as I could back outside, which is where I was supposed to be anyway. At the time, I didn't know what exactly I had witnessed, but I knew it was messed up and not for kids, even though the villain was in the form of a kid's doll. It wasn't until later that I realized I had witnessed a scene from one of the Chucky flicks. As a 6th grader, just when I thought I'd seen it all and that movies could no longer disturb me, I watched frickin' Puppet Master. And it disturbed the hell out of me. I caught this one on TV, staying up late and alone at my grandma's house. I loved spending the night at grandma's because all the bedrooms had TVs. And sometimes I'd stay up late till like 4 a.m. watching movies. AMC used to do this thing called Fear Fridays. From like 8 p.m. to 4 a.m. it was all scary movies. It was awesome. And I discovered a lot of 80s horror gems thanks to those Fear Fridays. But one night they showed Puppet Master. Puppet Master is a decent horror film that somehow spawned a ridiculous amount of sequels. There's like 10 more of these movies out there. Why? I couldn't tell you, but apparently there's a fan base for this series. I'm just yet to come across one of them in person. Anyway, the first film's kinda interesting. It's pretty violent from start to finish and even kinda creepy, but mostly just disturbing. There's this one scene in particular where this psychic couple's trying to get it on, but they're interrupted by puppets. Yeah, just roll with me here. One of the puppets has like a drill on his head and he takes out the woman, but her man doesn't realize it because she blindfolded him and tied him to the bed because they're into that kinky stuff. Anyway, a female puppet takes out the fella and it's pretty freaking weird and disgusting. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, this puppet can hurl up leeches. Whatever you say, movie, whatever you say. It's gruesome, there doesn't seem to be an end to her leech ammo, and the guy just has to take it, 'cause he's tied up. Yeah, I had a really hard time falling asleep that night. I kept having to remind myself there weren't leeches under my bed or under the covers with me. Back in elementary school, I can recall joining my dad in the living room where he'd been watching Poltergeist II on the TV screen. I guess he figured it was tame enough for me because he didn't bother changing the channel. Anyway, there's this scene in the middle of the movie where the loving dad gets a little possessed after accidentally drinking the wormy thing in the tequila. And yeah, that's the guy who does the voice of Mr. Incredible. He starts acting all weird to his family and then he attacks his wife. It doesn't last too long because the dad starts to regain control of his body, literally puking up the evil spirit. It's all super disgusting and I almost threw up watching it. Anyway, Poltergeist 2 isn't as good as the first one, but it's not a bad sequel at all. It's got the creepiest old dude you'll ever find in a movie, oh my god. Yeah, I didn't hang around the living room much longer after that, and the scene no doubt fueled a lot of nightmares. I was probably in 2nd grade when I first saw the original Planet of the Apes with Charlton Heston. My older brother and I just found ourselves watching it one day on TV. We enjoyed programs like The Twilight Zone, and this movie was like an extended Twilight Zone episode. I can recall enjoying the film most of the way through, but one thing I wasn't prepared for was the ending. I consider it one of the most famous twists of all time, but it's also a pretty bleak one. That's right, I'm talking about that Statue of Liberty finale. I couldn't bear watching Charlton Heston find out he was home all along. It was just devastating, and it stuck with me for a very long time, haunting my dreams. Back in 1983, John Carpenter followed up his movie The Thing with a Stephen King adaptation of Christine, the story about a possessed and evil car. I don't consider this one of John Carpenter's finest. In fact, I don't even think it makes his top 5, but it's definitely worth a look. I caught it on TV as a youngster, and it was pretty tolerable for a while, but then a scene in the middle spooked me pretty good. I'm talking about the scene in which Christine punishes that Jonah Hill-looking bully for smashing her up earlier with his friends. Unfortunately for them, Christine's able to self-repair in one of the cooler scenes in the movie. Anyway, she tracks down the heavier guy first on his way home. She chases him for a while, eventually trapping him in a tight space. Just when he thinks he's in the clear, Christine just squeezes her body through the tight space, crushing the poor punk in the process. Something about it got me pretty good, and I doubt I watched much more of it after that. Yeah, I found cars a lot scarier after that, especially antique ones. I was probably too young the first time I watched Rosemary's Baby all the way through, but hey, nobody was around to stop me. I loved spending the night at my aunt's house because she had all the movie channels, so I got to see Rosemary's Baby uncut. It's more of a conspiracy thriller than straight up horror, but there's this one scene that's bound to get under your skin no matter what age you are. I'm talking about the super creepy sex dream that Mia Farrow's character experiences closer to the beginning of the film. The way it was shot, the cycling in and out of consciousness, it's all really well done and super effective. I didn't appreciate how long that scene stuck with me afterwards. So there's a good amount of Jungle Book movies out there right now, and back in 1994 there was a live-action adaptation directed by Stephen Sommers, who went on to direct The Mummy with Brendan Fraser. This adaptation's pretty cool, but a little intense at times for a PG film. The third act of this film's like a body count. One guy falls off a cliff, one guy drowns in quicksand, one guy gets taken out by a giant snake, but there's 2 kills I found particularly terrifying as a boy, and those would be Boone and Boldeo's individual death scenes. Boone gets taken out by Shere Khan in this impressively cut sequence that I found a little too realistic as a kid and tough to watch. Then not long after that, Boldeo screws himself over in an effort to kill Mowgli, setting off an irreversible booby trap. Salt is pouring everywhere, making it tough for the wounded Boldeo to escape. The ceiling appears to be lowering, soon to be closing off all entrances forever, trapping anything inside. He was an a-hole, but I don't think I'd wish this death upon anyone. So, Children of the Corn 2 is nothing more than a piece of crap. I want to say the first film was based on a short story by Stephen King. How are there 13 of these Children of the Corn movies, though? Why? Anyway, in this movie, all the kids of the town hate the older folks, and all the older folks hate the kids right back. Only the kids made a pact with something evil and magical in the cornfield that granted them occasional evil powers. Yeah, there's like a scene where they magically take control of a granny's power scooter, forcing her into the street. That scene's pretty funny, actually.
Oh, 65.
Anyway, the scene that disturbed me as a kid when I caught it on TV at my grandma's was the part where the main bad boy takes out one of the adults with pretty much a voodoo doll. It's bloody, it's disgusting, and it still kind of disturbs me, and I don't appreciate that. The cartoon Pinocchio was disturbing enough. I didn't need to see it in live action. But in the 90s, my dad rented The Adventures of Pinocchio, I guess thinking I'd like it, but like it, I did not. This movie still kind of grosses me out, actually, especially the donkey transformation scene. Like, again, this part was scary enough when it was animated. I never needed to see it in live action. There's another creepy part where the bad guy accidentally falls into the magic water that turned all the boys into jackasses. Only he doesn't start to become a donkey. No, he turns into a freaking monster. Yeah, I'll probably never like this movie. Amityville 2 The Possession is like 20 times better than Amityville Horror. The first one might as well be called the Amityville Boar. Nothing happens. The second one, however, is loaded with suspense and scares that stick with you, especially when you watch it in a proper dark setting. Anyway, the scene that stuck with me the most as a kid was the oldest son's possession scene. It's just incredibly staged, incredibly shot. The sound decisions are just terrifyingly perfect. I consider it one of the best sequels of all time, although it's technically a prequel. It's one of my favorite horror films of all time, and I highly recommend it. No, you do not have to watch the first movie to understand it. In fact, feel free to just avoid the Amityville Horror altogether. Well, guys, it seems that's all I've got for you today, okay? So thanks for joining me, and don't get too scared. I'll see you next time.